Hello, my name is Drew, aka TP Wisengame on YouTube, and I'm here to discuss with you why I no longer play League of Legends. Quick note before I get started, the footage gathered in this video is outdated as I have not recorded League of Legends content in years, so the content shown will either be old games of mine or gathered from elsewhere. I did not decide to make this video to bash the game or the company behind it, Riot Games. Instead, I wanted to give my perspective on what I don't enjoy about the game, as well as what I do enjoy about it. I feel I'm qualified to make this kind of video not because of my rank, believe it or not, but because of my extended history of playing the game. I consider myself a veteran player. I've been playing relatively consistently since May of 2014, and for context, that's around when Braum was released, and it was only recently that I stopped logging into the client. Let's talk about why. This is a reminder that while this is an analytical video, it is also very opinionated. I have been passionate about this game for a while, including both the good and the bad aspects. And so if you agree or disagree with any of my points made here, feel free to discuss in the comments below. This is just my experience, and I feel I owe it to this game to make this video, as League of Legends has been part of my life for over 10 years now. League of Legends, without a doubt, is a very popular and successful game. It was one of my first PC games that I played consistently, and has been the only MOBA game that I've played, period. For background information, I was an AD carry main, and switched my secondary role from top to jungle over a few years ago. I played ranked in earlier seasons, part of the time with a duo partner, but turned away from ranked in recent years because I felt it just wasn't worth the time and energy, and the grind seemed fruitless. And that's because of a point I will make later on. I want to make sure I outline this part first so that everyone is clear on why and how I played the game the majority of the time. Most recently, I played duo, primarily with my girlfriend, and occasionally with others added to the group. We usually had a good time playing, but sometimes didn't know what to say when given the question, why do you play? I sometimes find it difficult to actually answer this question. I often find myself saying things along the lines of, well, because I've been playing forever and I've learned so much, why stop now? Or, I've spent too much time and money on this game. Not playing would put both of those things to waste. These are ideas that I am sure are present in the minds of multiple summoners. Yeah, remember when players were called summoners? I don't know where that went. Anyways, I will now go in depth as to what I think League does right and what it needs to improve on, and ultimately, why I decided to stop queuing up. How about we start with the positives? The story. The story of League of Legends is vast and has lots of moving parts. While Riot has had issues figuring out what sides of Runeterra to expand on and establishing what is canon and what isn't, we have to give them credit on their narratives and visuals, especially with the incredible success of Arcane, which is also getting a second season a couple months from now as of recording this video. I love looking at the art of Runeterra, and even used to use the official League wallpapers application until it stopped working. I enjoy the character design and the story behind the game, and often find myself reading up on the web pages and stories behind my favorite champions to learn more about them and where they fit within their regions. I also enjoy the in-game skins that really reimagine these characters in new and creative ways. One of my fondest memories from playing the game was getting together with friends and playing 4v4 or 5v5 custom games where we would do skin wars, like Star Guardians versus Battlecast, or region-based, Demacians versus Noxians. It's really fun. Of course, the skins are a bit oversaturated nowadays, and I sometimes have trouble identifying what champions are even under those skins by the splash arts. How am I supposed to know this is Caitlyn? It could be Irelia, it could be Ashe, I don't know. I think the live events and conventions that encourage summoners to interact and connect in person are fantastic, like many other games. Events like PAX, cosplay conventions, and of course Worlds are what make the difference between just playing the game and having the game be a part of your life. The production that goes into the ceremonies for Worlds each year is astonishing, and the technology and the creativity used honestly rivals some of the top shows given at any amusement park you can find around the world. This is a bit of a weird point for me to make because I have not actually been to a League of Legends event in person before, but I do know people who have, and I have also watched several videos highlighting said events, and they look like a lot of fun. I still, to this day, want to create a League cosplay and attend one of these events. Like any game, or any pastime for that matter, attending conventions like these are amazing experiences that can also connect you with others that share the same passions, and where you can make memories that you will look back on. League of Legends live events are no exception to this fact. Now let's get into the negatives, the things I don't like about the game. So of course, League of Legends is not a perfectly balanced game. As a matter of fact, I think achieving that in this game is an impossibility. Think about it, right? This game, with over 160 characters now, with different abilities, playstyles, and win conditions, interact with each other in different team combinations. This is already a lot, and that was without me bringing up the items. So yeah, the game is unbalanced. Let's just agree on that. The balanced team gets a lot of crap for it, sometimes well-deserved, sometimes not. Needless to say, looking at it from a competitive standpoint, there have been several times where the item system has completely changed, sometimes just for the sake of change, leaving us with items that are completely overtuned, sometimes to the point where certain champions become broken because of a single item. The mythic items were a mistake. That's why they finally reverted back to the non-mythic item system. Why? Because Riot thought they would increase build diversity in the game when it ended up doing the exact opposite. If I was in charge, I would honestly get rid of items altogether. I think it would make the game a lot easier to balance. Again, I'm looking at this from a competitive viewpoint, since 1, this is a competitive game, and 2, the balance changes are often catered towards pro play. And that's another thing. Competitive League of Legends and pro play is completely different from regular League of Legends that the majority of summoners take part in. So a good portion of the player base already is ignored when it comes to champion, item, and map balancing. I think Video Game Donkey puts it into perfect wording in his video, even if it is a bit crude.
The pros are in matches where all 10 guys are amazing at the game. In real League of Legends, there's going to be 3 decent guys and 7.
Now, I enjoy the competitiveness of the game and the strategy involved in facing lane opponents, strategizing what plays to make late game, and making quick decisions in thrilling team fights. I like that stuff. Some of my greatest memories from regular matches often involved high-stakes situations where death timers are long, one play could decide the game. However, regular match durations have increasingly shortened because of the current state of the game, and now the outcome of many games are already decided within the first 10 minutes of the game. I'm not saying comebacks aren't possible, it's quite the opposite in many cases, but the game fosters a very snowbally environment where 1 or 2 setbacks at the beginning means you and your team are already fighting an uphill battle. And then comes into play one of the most important aspects of a game like this: mental. Now let's talk about a point that I'm sure a lot of you know is going to be here: the player base and toxicity. Also, before I get going, here's a little plug for you.
Plug in.
I talked about competitive esports on a short podcast episode that I made with a few friends, and I think some great points are made in the episode. So if you want to check that out, I'll leave a link in the description. The podcast is called Controller Cast. So in pretty much all competitive games, there's shit talk. There just is. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. People like to get riled up, boast, poke fun at others, push their buttons, and all that banter that comes with it. Of course, several players take it way too far, and by what I mean by taking it way too far, I mean taking it to levels of racism, homophobia, and just making personal attacks on others. None of that is okay. Some game companies have done well with handling player reports and punishing toxicity, and others haven't. Riot Games' reporting system was one of those examples that didn't handle these instances well, and it was like that for a long time. Players would purposely sabotage games because they grew selfish and wanted everyone else to have a bad time. And yet if I was to flame that person, I would be punished. And many of these players that would do these things would receive no punishment unless they were openly admitting it what they were doing during the game. I actually think that in the recent past, Riot has gotten better at handling these situations and the report system has improved. But the point still stands, and the damage has already been done.
Tons of damage.
I think there's a little bit more work that needs to be done. I haven't played that much since they installed Vanguard, so I don't know how well that's working, but I've heard it's been pretty alright. But there's still improvements to be made. The most effed up part of this in League of Legends, however, is that most of the time, the toxicity comes from those on your own team. You know, the people you were supposed to work and cooperate with collectively in this team-based game. There was talk of disabling all chat a while back, and I was like, what is that going to fix? What about all the times where the toxic comments come from someone on my own team that was also directed at someone else on my team? Now in the past, League of Legends has brought out the worst in me, so I will not exclude myself from this behavior. I have taken part in the toxicity in this game, often in response to other players flaming me initially or for purposely feeding and sabotaging the match. It is frustrating to see players do this and is a team morale killer. I frequently come across players that are oversensitive but talk shit all game. And when given constructive feedback, they get all defensive, like everything said is an attack on them personally. There have been several games where I have opted to just have everyone on the team muted the whole game so that I don't have to interact with them in chat. The very thing we are encouraged to do in a team setting with a common goal. The large sum of toxicity is a big reason why I decided to stop playing. It's not a very fun environment, and I'd rather do something else entirely with my time so that my couple hours aren't wasted by random people and other factors that I can't control. And that leads me into my next point. I'll say it again, this is primarily meant to be a competitive game. So looking at it through that lens again, let's talk about solo and duo queue in this game. Whether you're playing ranked, normals, or ARAM, each game's outcome is a dice roll. Especially in ARAM because you get random champions. But each game is a dice roll if you choose to play solo. That's how I sum it up. Short and sweet. But yeah, remember Donkey's statement from earlier. Each team on average will have 2 to 3 good players and 7 to 8 donkeys. So if you're playing by yourself or duo with a friend, like I often have, you just have to hope and cross your fingers that you have good teammates. Of course, you can still focus, pull your own weight, and carry games to victory even if your teammates are terrible. There's no disputing that. But the likelihood of that happening is slim in many cases, and can easily tank your mental game as well. So what if your top lane ints their lane opponent and then gets salty later in the game and gives up? You kind of just have to take that L sometimes. You can't control what other people do and think, and if you try and facilitate that, it's just going to get you into trouble, and most likely make the situation even worse. This holds true especially in a game like League, where once a lead is achieved, the game can snowball out of control if someone royally screws the pooch early on. This is all tolerable in normal games that can be more casual, but it is truly terrible in ranked, and results in several players not being ranked where they deserve to be, based on their individual skill level. And so I'll say this, if you actually want to play League of Legends, make sure you have at least 3 to 4 friends that you can queue up with so that you can actually have a fully functioning team to work with and that you can communicate with without having random outliers. That is the only way I see this game being fun. Playing solo is miserable, especially in ranked, and to me isn't worth the time put in. And as an additional note, make sure those that you play with are good friends that you mesh with and can cooperate well with. When I started playing League, I often queued with friends, and while I love them all to this day, League of Legends would frequently bring us to our boiling points. There would be frustration, that would break out into arguments sometimes, and people were pissed off, just not a good time. So those are all the points I have to make. Since I primarily did duo queue and did not usually have a pre-made group of 5 to queue with, the game wasn't as fun, and attempting ranked in that case seemed pointless. That coupled with the unbalanced nature of the champions and items, as well as the toxicity of the community, made for an unpleasant game experience overall for me. I previously gamed on a Mac laptop, and having finally built a PC, over a year ago, I now have access to more games that are infinitely more fun than League. Games that are more balanced, and ones that I can enjoy with friends and make better memories with.
I feel that the game has lost its soul, and I don't see the game's charm that I feel it once had. The game has changed. It used to have more content as well. There used to be 4 maps, not 2. There used to be cool rotating game modes like Ascension, Legend of the Poro King, Doombots, and Star Guardian Invasion, which helped break up the monotony of just playing Summoner's Rift. But these modes were discontinued in 2021 because Riot felt that they weren't getting enough attention, and they were focusing more on the esports scene anyways. The passion put into those game modes were thrown away because of profits. Now, we get crappy visual novels and $500 esports skins.
Let me be clear, I don't hate the game, I just find some aspects of it really frustrating. Plus, I now have much better options when diving in for a gaming session. If I do end up playing League nowadays, it's once in a blue moon, and it's most likely a custom game with friends. However, I have played the game for over 10 years, and still look back at my time as a summoner, where I was landing those perfect teamfight ultimates as Sejuani, serving the creator as Skarner in the Battlecast army, or juggling spinning axes on the Rift as Draven. The game has its flaws, but I do not regret my time spent in the game. And so I want to say thank you. Thank you to League of Legends for entertaining me, testing my patience at times, and providing me with great stories and a diverse group of characters that I became intrigued with as I learned and played the game more. The Rift may have lost a veteran summoner today, but it'll survive.